I'm going to check for it. If not, I'll go back and get it from the recording. But diving in, so again, we're going to go through new CDX delegate update or new CDX delegates, upcoming updates, new media releases, and our roundtable recaps. Bria, I did see your note. I'll have you go second, so you can get out here early. But those of you who are in the digital twin discussion, I got to hear from Rachel. She's been on some previous conversations. We've been dying to have more architecture engineering perspectives. So great to have Rachel with us representing NIBS. And again, we'll hear more about what happened in their discussion and more efforts to come as far as collaborations between CPC and NIBS. So excited to see where that goes. And just a reminder again for everyone that these conversations are not possible. I wouldn't be able to do this without the support of all these companies here, as well as more individuals that support on an individual membership basis. So if you can, do please check out constructionprogress.org/membership if you're not already supporting and want to continue to have these conversations and get those early invites, so you don't have to worry about checking LinkedIn and registering last minute. But one of the things that this allows us to do, and I want to thank Sasha for bringing all this together, which is a collaboration between Brick and Mortar Ventures with Alice Leung, YOPS, through UHI, Construction Progress Coalition, through the help of Sasha and Procore.org, as well as NAWIC and our representative Mercedes. Those who know Brent Darnell has also been a huge help in sort of framing this message to really find out what is the struggle with. We all see our friends, and I mean, it's just the conversation we were having of folks leaving companies, leaving industries because of these cultural challenges. So how do we address them? We want to hear from you. So again, I believe tomorrow we will be dropping this. So there's most likely not a link for this survey yet, but it will be open until the end of this month. So do please go in there, especially if you have left for either tech or left your own company for another industry within the larger AEC industry. We want to know why, because frankly, most of our employers don't do exit surveys. So we don't have a lot of this data in our industry that other industries have. So excited to see where that goes. But let's dive in to our general session, Thought Leadership and the Art of Change. So again, Sasha and Nathan talked about how might we unpack how creative messaging can provoke thoughts or actions when targeted to specific groups in ways that use the power for good to break down stigma, drive awareness, and generate action, so that change initiators build consensus with opposing groups prior to their transformation campaign. So I know Nathan, it's been great meeting you so far and learning more about what you're doing with Grit Digital and kind of your whole background. But Sasha, why don't you break down for us quickly what you guys talked about?
Yeah, thank you. I do encourage you all to take a listen to the session once Nathan posts it, because there were nuggets of expertise shared here. And what I'll say is, I think for all of us here, we definitely are what I will call change makers. And so we're passionate about asking people to do something different or change a behavior in order to have a very specific outcome. And if you're here and you're part of a VDC team or a technology team, or you're working on the technology side, there is a burden of proof on you to ensure that what you're promising or what you're asking has the outcome it delivers. This session was a deep dive into how to understand your audience in order to ensure that you can deliver on those metrics, define them first, and then deliver. So one of the biggest, I'll just give you kind of like the three biggest takeaways. The first was, when you are thinking about working with a community or asking someone to change a behavior or implementing technology, know your audience. Take the additional time up front to really understand who your audience is, understand and articulate the barriers in front of them, and also be able to understand what matters to them and how they want to be communicated. I think many times we just think if it's logical, it'll be adopted. Well, we as humans are highly illogical, shocker. And honestly, having somebody who understands the psychology behind change is critically important. So know your audience. Make sure that the messaging is correct for different audiences. So Jackson was very amazing in this, and he shared around sharing financials with his organization when it's 10 people versus 70 people. Very different. You can share the same information, but tweak slightly differently so that each can get the takeaways that they need. That's intentional. That has to be built into how you're communicating to your organization. And then the third and final piece really is around the messaging matters. and the metrics that you're measuring this messaging against matters. How are you leveraging the technology that you're deploying to actually capture some of that metrics for you? But it can't just be the technology usage. It also has to be surveys. So have at least 3 points of understanding, either interviews, surveys, the data within the technology, and your own metrics that you've set for success, whether that's usage or whatever. Have at least 3 metrics in place to be able to cross-reference and really get a good idea if success has been achieved.
Awesome. Well done, Sasha. You're rehearsed at this. You've done this before, haven't you?
Just a little bit.
Thank you, Nathania. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going through that recording and hearing the discussion. So thank you. But let's move on quickly before we get into Bree's breakout. The 2022 summer research program has concluded. Again, we're so grateful for Bluebeam. It's their 3rd year in a row supporting us with $20,000 in scholarship funds that went out to 8 different interns this summer. You can see them here and the different schools and companies that they represented. Just an example here from Weston's of kind of what they did over the summer. So they, using this CDX format, mapped their stakeholders and their personas and the systems of record and documents related to their specific workflow challenge, coming up with that current state challenge that led them to their how might we objective statement, that then led them to change that current state workflow and show us where they would, from a fresh eyes perspective, change workflow or platforms in order to improve process and quality. We had 6 great judges representing all of our ambassador level technology partners to make sure there was no bias towards any particular software that went into judging the innovation award winners. So awesome to have DJ and Peg and Jared back, as well as new judges Ron, Walter, and Eric. But what they were looking for in all these presentations was really the level of understanding as an intern to these shared pains that we talk about every couple months here, and really try to understand the nuance of, so how well did they do that in a short period of time, and how well did their visual CDX map actually align with what they were describing. And then as we look towards the future state, how practical was that shared gain that they were proposing, as well as how novel was it? Because again, our judges hear ideas and see things all the time within the industry, so they've got a good sense for that. So we used Typeform this summer to fill in our different scores after everyone gave their 10-minute presentations. And after the scores, we came up with 2 key winners in the category 1 and category 3. So without further ado, the winners out of the 8 this year in category 1 was Jacqueline Chen with Suffolk Construction. And she was really looking at MEP coordination, a lot of the challenges that the Digital Twin Group was talking about with liability and coordination and trust. And then John's winning in the category 3 for his efforts with QR code access to drawings out in the field, something that we thought was dead in 2012, and all of a sudden COVID came around and QR codes are the new hot thing. So congratulations to both of them. They both take home $4,000 scholarship. Everyone else comes home with a $2,000 scholarship. And again, everyone's a winner. I think we all learned something from it. And once again, thank you to Bluebeam for putting that together with us. So without further ado, let's dive into reality capture and the reference liability group. So Bree was leading this group. I unfortunately did not get any time in there. I'm very curious to hear what happened and certainly listen to the recording, but they were talking about how might we convince designers, GCs, and trades to embrace multi-trade layout from BIM in ways that invite each stakeholder to participate in that transformation of project risk. Again, risk being a huge component of this. So that the potential time and cost savings do not accidentally create new stakeholder risks. So without further ado, Bree, what did you guys talk about with Rick, Josh, and Tomer?
Oh man, there was a ton that was talked about. I want to just highlight a couple of the quotes and takeaways from our discussion. And in this How Might we were talking about leveraging BIM for multi-trade layout, but there were a lot of underlying problems that needed to be addressed before that can be solved. And the first one is just everyone needs to be relying on the same coordinated layout system. And something James brought up, who jumped on, was if the layout person fails, then we're all failing. And even if we are using all these other technologies and ways to coordinate, we're all coordinating off something that's wrong. So we have to have the global accuracy that provides relative accuracy. And one thing that we had said was, even if we're all working off the same grid system, we're at least all failing together, and we're all going to be 1 inch to the right versus all of us being 1 inch to the right, to the left, 2 inches forward. We're at least all in the same plane of accuracy. And I think that's something that's just really important here, is that even if we're still using 100% 2D, that getting general contractors to really take on the ownership of layout is going to be a huge benefit to the project. And tools like LIDX and other robotics and prefabrication are going to greatly drive the incentive for contractors to do that. And Rick brought up some great examples of his career where prefabrication or self-perform has driven that. And we've all been a part of these amazing design build jobs that have the right contract that incentivize that, understanding of common layout to leverage tools like BIM, and we have coordination plans. But projects that don't have that contract, it's not driving the need for this to be owned. And what we kind of came to was, even on projects that don't have the right contract type or don't have the need, there's absolutely an incentive for this to be driven towards right now, by just starting with something simple like contractors owning layout and just watching all the benefits trickle off of that. So great examples that Tomer brought up around, if there is that common layout and there's one person using this tool, all of us are going to be able to get the benefits from that eventually downstream. And if we just start with one small step, all of us are going to start to be able to add more use cases, which inherently transfer risk off of contractors, which incentivizes them to do these kinds of things in the future.
Awesome. Well said, Bree. Your practice is at this as well. It's nice. There's kind of like a rhythm to it now. This is great. So yeah, no, I think very, very well said. Can't wait to listen and dive deeper into that. But moving along, next up, so podcast alert, upcoming podcasts, great stuff out there. Just some quick highlights from some of our favorites. So I think Jeff Sample's on with Disjointed. If you haven't listened to Kurt Neubeck's conversation, I don't know, Rachel, if you know Kurt, he comes from the architecture side, and man, I was blown away at his ability to articulate some of the lean concepts from a designer's point of view, where usually we're typically used to hearing it from a contractor's point of view. And of course, Amy Marks is always a fun discussion to see where industrialized construction is going. I see Julian Clayton on there, who was with us in February. And of course, we all know Jake Olson. I'm not surprised if he did some karaoke or some sort of sang a song on the podcast, but that's on my to listen list on my next run. But moving on to Contact Crew, which also has to be led by Jeff Sample now. There's a great conversation 318. And if you get a chance to watch the video part, there's some great graphics that Kevin put out with some of the data that they're releasing through Ignite related to, again, how the industry is moving towards digitization and digitalization. So definitely check that one out, as well as both Jacob's interview on 316, as well as his first time hosting on 321 with Danielle O'Connell. So lots to catch up on the Contact Crew. Whew. Man, I told you were busy over there. Find any time to work. But moving along, I don't think I saw Mr. Todd on here, but Bridging the Gap's been churning out a ton of stuff. Josh Bone lays down some really great, for those of us who are looking for the data and the research, some great stuff coming out of Electri. So do check out Bridging the Gap. I saw there is a new podcast from Construction Dorks. I somehow missed the invite to participate. I think I might have been intentionally left out. But great conversation here again around foresights and winning more work. And then the last one here for the EBFC show, our newest collaboration partner podcast with Felipe Engineer Manriquez. I'm personally sort of a nerd for blockchain and where Web 3.0 is going. If you haven't met Robert Salvador, he's definitely, I would consider, one of the subject matter experts in the industry when it comes to blockchain for construction. So interesting to hear how he describes the future of smart contracts and some of those terms, as we'll figure out what that is and our role in it from an interoperability standpoint moving forward. So that's it for podcasts. I do want to quickly announce for those, especially in the finance or surety world, the SBA just put this announcement out, and Michelle, who's our delegate from XBRL, it's a big achievement for them and something we should, I think, all celebrate around adoption of standards compliance for receiving things like a work in progress report. And essentially, this is breaking down ways to normalize, to Kelly's point in our digital twin conversation, into a standard format of XBRL, some of these construction related document formats, or sorry, reporting formats. So again, a great example where things like the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, that has been a lot of press around that, and what is that going to do to help advance construction. I think these are small examples where that is happening, and things we can point to as we try and make our own cases for similar changes. And so along those lines, again, if you're not as familiar with the IHJA and want to get more familiar, especially the role it has on construction technology, kudos to Mike Cesar over at Rivet, who put together this great online report. That one of the things that I thought was really kind of eye-opening, and something we can really look to as a framework, is this breakdown of the 4 different categories of what their objectives are as it relates to construction technology, around accelerating, improving, empowering, and reducing. So I think there's this and other items that I think put a lot of meat on the bone for some of these business cases that we're going to have to make for change here in the near future. So good to see that there's more content being put out that's helping us with that cause, including the CDX 1.1 discovery summary that is now available online to download. It's, again, since publishing, I found a few more corrections and revisions, and always trying to improve how we explain this very nuanced and complex thing that is CDX. So thank you for bearing with us as we work on the reporting side of it, but great to see that these discussions and the initiatives themselves are still continuing to move forward. Speaking of which, moving into digital twin, and again, for those who were in February, this has been the long-standing continuation of really that group 2, or the CDX 2 of how we hand off information between stakeholders. So really looking at the design handoff. So Kelly came over from the RFI group to moderate this discussion this time, looking at how we can leverage this ISO 19650 standard to increase digital quality of design deliverable handoffs in ways that improve process efficiency and reduce errors between the senders and recipients of that information, so that future conflicts between either local, state, or federal reporting that could come down would be avoided. So again, between our UK perspective of Nigel, and again here in the US with NIBS and the BIM Council, Rachel, Kelly, take us through. I was part of this one. It was a fun discussion. What did you guys talk about?
Yeah, Nathan, I don't think you could help yourself. You were jumping in every
I couldn't. Well, I want to make sure we got to the right points, right? Because we can go in so many different directions.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, when it all comes down to it, as an American people, we don't like regulations, right? We don't like being told what to do. Try to get 10 people in the same department within one company to agree on anything is nearly impossible, right? So how can we chase this industry-wide standard on how we're going to classify information and share information? It's a really big pill to swallow, if you will. Well, I think this discussion went a long way in trying to break that down and having different folks involved in that conversation and perspectives. The key thing to take away from all of this is the need to prepare early in the process to understand what information there is to manage. And the timing of when people come in to put in their 2 cents is less important than everybody having the understanding of what information we're trying to manage. One of the points that Nigel brought up is that the B in BIM kind of throws people off, because we have vertical, we have horizontal, and all the opinions start hitting there. It really comes down to information management. So let's go slow to go fast. Take the time to set up consensus on those things that we can by that particular project. We don't have to agree as an industry across all projects. We just need a framework of how we can make those classifications within an individual project, and then have some normalization so that everybody's saying the same thing. The key thing, and I think that's when everybody was shaking their head up and down, as Nigel described it, it's 19650 is a framework for how information is delivered, not a specification or a requirement for what is delivered, right? It gives folks an ability to have that conversation and come to agreement on what they need to, and please just standardize on a particular project, and then your project will go well. If you don't do it, it will have problems. And I think everybody who's on this call right now can count probably 10 different times where it just didn't go well. Let's try to work towards that framework, that consensus. Rachel kind of wrapped up the conversation with, I think, a very important point, that technology has made the state of the possible, right? And now everybody else is catching up. So you have your individuals, your businesses, and public policy that are all much flatter curves than the steep technology curve. Okay, great. So we can do this, but it's going to take people, the businesses that they work for, and then the public policy that's driving all this time to catch up. So let's go look at peeling the onion in a different way. 19650 gives us that ability in that we can work towards the consensus and then continuously put out annexes to help drive the clarity in those specific municipalities or countries or organizations, vertical versus horizontal. Let's learn from what they did in the UK. Let's not try to chart our own course here. So I think those are the key things to take away, but I encourage you to take a look at that roundtable. There's just a ton of information. We went right up to the last 20 seconds.
Yeah, and I think well said about the framework. I mean, Sasha, that brings us way back to, it's not a standard, it's a guideline. Yeah. So much of this stuff is not telling people how to do it, but giving them the framework to make the right decisions, because the answer is always going to be, it depends. But the more we can understand all those different variables, all those different levers of influence, the better we can control our destiny, right? So awesome. Moving on to our upcoming events. So we did thank you, Darren Young, for sharing an awesome list. And I know Bianca way back used to always keep Excel lists of all the upcoming conferences. So we've done our best to try and actually put that online and put that on the website. So in addition to the normal RSVPing for our roundtables and the upcoming summit, there'll also be a list below with the calendar of all the other upcoming events, which I will go through right now. So you can see what it looks like there, and give you opportunities to either copy your own calendar or actually register by clicking on the link there. But a quick look at the next couple months. Obviously, we're in conference season, so there's a lot. I will not spend too much time, just go through them quickly. Dixon and others will be in Texas for the Digital 360 Summit next week, talking about smart grids and how interoperability and infrastructure all come together. Also next week is Dublin, in Dublin, Ireland. I will be there with Paul Doherty as well as Damon Hernandez. I think I saw there are 25 US presenters, probably a mix of in-person and virtual, but looking forward to seeing Nigel in person and seeing other folks out there to, again, learn more from the other side of the pond, how we can improve our BIM coordination and BIM collaboration. Also next week is industrial grade innovation. For those that may have participated in the past, Todd Mustard and those with talk are going to be running that. And then also in September is the International Manufacturing Technology Show in Chicago. I know there's quite a few folks in Chicago. I will be with Rachel in DC on September 26th, 27th for the Building Innovation Conference by NIBS. And so looking forward to meeting some folks there and trying to push these conversations forward. As well as same week is Autodesk University. So I'm sure quite a few folks here will be down in New Orleans for that, and looking forward to that. Moving into October, it's a little bit lighter. Advancing Construction Quality is October 10th through 12th in Arizona. The Reality Capture Network that I know Revisto and a few other folks attended their first one last year, had great things to say. That's coming back October 11th through the 13th here in Denver.
Wasn't that in Boise?
Oh, I'm sorry. That got screwed up. You're right. Yeah, don't look at that. You're right. Reality Captures Boise, CSI Nationals Denver. I missed that. Sorry. Yeah, I'll get that corrected. So yes, thank you for that correction. Flip those two cities. But the dates I believe are correct. And then LCI is in New Orleans, 18th through the 21st, which unfortunately is why we won't be able to connect certain folks together, because I know Jeff Sample and I will be at the AGC Tech Conference in St. Louis, Missouri on October 20th. So looking forward to seeing Rivet and Revisto and a few other folks there, and having some great conversations with local folks in St. Louis. So let's get into our last roundtable discussion, digitalization and the incentive to share. I apologize, we'll go a little bit over, but I'm sure most folks probably have till the top of the hour anyway. But Nick, again, was leading this discussion around how might we reward high-performing contractors with reduced insurance rates. in ways that measure new key performance indicators consistently across each contractor, so that the combination of savings potential and low barrier to entry outweigh any historical concerns. Very, very nuanced discussion, one that took us a while to kind of wrap our heads around. So I'll kick it over to you, Nick, and let us know if you made any headway in the incentive structure between insurance and us contractors submitting to insurance providers.
Yeah, I'll say some.
Okay, not
yeah,
nothing.
yeah, I'll try to keep it kind of quick here, but
Yeah.
you know, obviously a very involved conversation, and one of the first times I think that we've actually had it with everyone else in the room. So good discussion to have, but started off a little bit with Chris talking about how, okay, right now, Aon, what they're doing with SDI involves kind of those really top flight GCs who have all their stuff together and are able to compile this data to kind of improve their rates and have this increased profile to even get SDI in the first place, which is kind of this newer thing, let's say, within the last 10, 20 years. We brought that discussion forward to say, well, okay, when we're talking about these buckets of data that they're looking at, Novo was able to identify for us, okay, well, they're looking at exposure data with respect to what type of projects the clients are building, policy data, different claims that they made, but then also this last bucket, which is what they might call mitigation data. So any technology that's been implemented on site, IoT, things like that, that are working against some of the claims that they see historically, or, you know, issues or things that are root causes for issues that they've seen. What we kind of found going through that is, okay, well, a lot of that stuff is provided by the trades, and that discussion of what's in it for me. So how do we incentivize them to really contribute to this? Is there an opportunity for us to bring that benefit to them in a more concrete way than saying, like, okay, you can increase your efficiency and your operations, you know, it's going to positively affect your bottom line. It's like, how do we give them a little bit more of a so what, which is what we're hung up on, you know, for a little bit, I think. Definitely talked to the idea of, well, yeah, maybe we could use this kind of from a top-down type of situation where the owner is driving this to say, okay, yes, there will be some beneficial rates from increasing this transparency to all of the kinds of claims that you're having, and really opening up the floodgates between the levels of trade to GC to owner. But I think it was Alec who had the quote was, what was it? If you're going to be naked, you better be buff. So it was one of those things where
give Chris credit for that. Give Chris credit.
Chris. That's Chris. Sorry. But anyway, there is this hesitation that we're going to have to overcome with, like, yes, there may be situations where creating greater visibility around everything that happens is, you know, could have a negative effect. Your rate could go up in one, you know, short way. But the idea being that having this additional learning and this greater vision of all that is going on with respect to projects, and then kind of taking that look in aggregate, is really going to help lower those premiums over time. So it's obviously there's a lot more to it, but that was ultimately where we sort of landed, and kind of had a little bit of discussion at the very end with respect to, you know, there does need to be some sort of case study. Maybe some people need to take a leap of faith on these really highly transparent projects. And Dixon brought up an example. I think it was, you said, the University of Texas that was doing this type of a situation.
Yeah, that's correct. Construction Industry Institute looking at a thing called OS2, a neighborhood where they have common data elements and transparency across the entire platform.
Does that mean we have to invite Pete Dumont on again next time?
Well, yeah, well, Kurt's a member of Construction Progress Coalition. Kurt's leading it. So
yeah, that's good. That's great. That's all coming full circle.
Yeah. So that was kind of where the discussion left off. I'm sure there's a lot more to go, though.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you so much, Nick. And yeah, that's it's so funny that the financial discussion ends up being the more challenging motivational discussion. It seems like it would be a no-brainer.
Go figure. You always give those ones to me.
Hey, I mean, yeah, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, right? But no, great job on a difficult conversation, and I think, yeah, we've got enough there to wrap up some sort of a concluding message in those groups for the white papers. But moving on, it's hard to believe that next February is what, about 6 months away. And so for those of you that enjoyed these discussions and were not with us last February, we will be returning to the same hotel in Denver. It'll be February 8th through the 10th. There's actually a CURT conference in San Antonio that 6th through the 8th. So it works out well to just fly up from San Antonio. So we make sure we don't lose our owners' perspectives. But we'll bump that networking day to pre-summit. So we'll go up to Vail on that Wednesday and then do a full day Thursday, half day Friday workshop. So again, a lot of the same types of discussions we got into today, but much deeper and more structured around trying to get some practical outcomes and have the right people in the room where we can actually leave with some legitimate action items. So Nige, well, I think he left, but really looking forward to trying to get recruit some European folks, some UK and other to come join us out here. Especially those that like skiing, and see what happens when we actually really put our heads together for a while on this. So one update that I'm just excited to share as we continue the planning is that rather than looking at a specific workflow like RFI or pay app or whatever, we're toying with the idea of looking at team categories. So, how do you search for project information, or how do you sort by? Is status the kind of the big thing that you're looking for as an owner or someone with task items? Is it the individual persona if you're kind of an operations leader? Is it by the stakeholder if you're more of like a surety or others that care about company profile information? Or is it location, which can go a lot of different directions as our groups know just today. There's also a difference between location and shape, size, geometry category that will kind of define where those lines and overlaps are, as well as the importance of date and time and phase, of course, which ultimately results back to cost. So interested to see how that shapes out. We'll be reaching out to our ambassador level members for team sponsorships and kind of go down that line as far as our strategic recruiting to make sure we get all the right folks in the room for this discussion. So if you're really chomping at the bit to be part of it, do reach out to me off to the side, and we'll try and figure out how best to get everyone involved, because certainly don't want to exclude anyone, but want to make sure that we are actively recruiting the right folks to be in the room for this. So I'll let everyone go here, but just want to remind that these recordings will be posted to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that so you get those notifications as they come out over the coming weeks. And our next virtual roundtable is set tentatively for October 26th. We're going to see between other European perspectives and kind of who all is going to be joining us if we do the afternoon time or the morning time. So we'll let everyone know. Delegates will get that hold invite, and we'll be posting on LinkedIn as soon as that time is confirmed. So without taking up any more folks' time, we're already 5 minutes over. I want to thank all of our moderators. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Bree. And all the folks that, again, I know how busy all of you are. So it means a lot to take time out of your day and have these conversations. Do please provide any feedback if there's ways we can improve them in the future. And until then, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in a couple months.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks,
Good day.
everyone.